We should be live right now. And let me see. There's this. All right. I think we are live. Yes. All right, David. Welcome to the interview or the conversation or whatever you want to call it.
Well, whatever you call it, I am very pleased. And I've been looking forward to this. Actually, I woke up this morning like a little kid going to a party. Felt.
Well, I hope it fulfills your expectations. But yeah, it's a pleasure for me to be talking to you again, as always. Um, let's start off with your name and your date of birth and your birthplace, so people know who you are.
All right. I was born in New York City, September 22nd, 1924. That's a way back.
All right.
And my
Yes,
name,
that's way back. Sorry,
and my name is David Marshall.
David Marshall. Do,
And what else do you want to know? You have to ask me, and I'll tell you.
do you remember your army serial number?
328-16846.
There you go.
Yeah.
And what unit did you serve in?
Eventually, I was in the 3rd Battalion, M Company, 334th Infantry of the 84th Division, called the Rail Splitters. And they were a division that started in World War I, known as the Lincoln Division, named after Abraham Lincoln. And at some point later on, I don't know when, it was changed to the Rail Splitters because he, as a youth, split rails to earn money. These rails were used to make fencing, to form the borders of to get the borders of the farms. So they used split rails, and that's what he did, and that's where the name Rail Splitters came in.
Interesting. I did not know that. But that's very interesting. Very cool. Now, how are you doing in these times of Corona? Are you able to go out the house? Um,
Well, my wife and I, we're the only two here now, of course, and with a cat who's helping a little bit to pass the time away. Uh, but as I said, this is the start of our 7th week being housebound. She does not go out at all.
right.
She's a little frail and mentally she's a little off. But I go out on occasion for some marketing, and my daughters and granddaughter do shopping for us and bring stuff over. So, fortunately for us, and why I don't know, but the time has been passing pretty easily. No cabin fever yet, and we try to amuse ourselves with whatever reading we can do. We can't go to the library because the library is closed. So we have a lot of books in the house, and we search the television for shows and pictures and so on. Like I did last night, I found one called Stargate, which was an interesting movie. And that's how we pass the time away. It's more eating, and a lot of sleeping,
A lot of sleep.
and whatever else we can do. I have to exercise her because otherwise she gets her pains in her back and legs. So I exercise her as much as possible to keep her loose and limber. And that's how it goes, Joey. When you're older, there's less things you can do, really, because you're limited by your physical ability.
Right.
I do things in the house to keep them in good repair, and which I used to do more of when I was younger, but I still can. And that's it.
That's it. And for the record, you are how old right now?
95,
90.
going on 96 in September.
Oh, that's good for you.
Yeah.
Looking fresh as ever.
And we get calls. I get calls from the fellows at the gym who want to know how I'm doing and miss me, and we're all looking forward to getting back to the gym and working out again. But
Yes.
I've been getting a lot of calls from them. It's very nice because they feel sort of protective of me.
That's great.
Yeah,
At least they're keeping in contact.
yeah,
How
yes.
many times did you used to go to the gym?
I used to go 3 times a week. I still try to go 3 times a week, but it's more like two.
Okay. And then what kind of exercise do you do? Like running, or do you use the? I mean,
Well,
not running, obviously, but
I walk on the treadmill,
okay.
but
Okay.
I do weightlifting, and I work on the machines, the weight machines, as much as I possibly can. I can't lift as much weight as I used to. That I know, and I don't push it. There was a time not too long ago, really, about 2 years ago, I was bench pressing 125 pounds.
125 pounds.
Yeah, that's almost as much as I weigh.
That's crazy. That is so much respect for that.
And it I don't know, I never thought it was that much, but the people at the gym did, and they got the newspaper to come and do an interview and take pictures. And I was on TV, on a local channel, TV, and Long Island channel. And all my friends say, "Gee, I saw you on TV," and it was nice, very nice.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Now, let's talk a little bit about the time about your family before the war. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had a brother, an older brother, and older sister. My brother was 8 years older than me, and my sister was 13.
Okay. Did your brother happen to serve as well?
No, unfortunately, he didn't. He had high blood pressure,
Okay.
very high blood pressure, flat feet, which, well, they would have overlooked the flat feet, I think, but the high blood pressure was bad. In fact, that's what killed him in a couple of years after the war.
Hmm.
He, he was 31 when he died.
Okay.
The high blood pressure affected his kidneys, and he died of renal failure.
And so you were born in New York City. Uh,
Yes.
um, did you go? I suppose you went to high school.
Oh, yes, yes. I went to DeWitt Clinton High School, which was in another borough. I lived in Manhattan. The school was in the Bronx, so I would take trains in the morning to get to school. It was a very good all boys school.
Hmm.
Actually, I could have gone to a high school near my house, but that was co ed, and I didn't want to do that. I
Hmm.
didn't want to go to a co ed school because it didn't have that great a reputation. I knew the kids who were going there, so I
I
didn't
see.
want to go to school with them. So I went to this other school, which was a much better school.
I see. Now, what do you remember the most about the 30s? I mean, it was a big. They call it the Great Depression. What do you remember of that?
It's very odd. I was just I'm dictating my memoirs now, and
Okay.
I go into a bit of discussion about the 30s. It was bad. However, I said it really didn't affect me somewhat. I came home from school, would go down the street and play
Hmm.
with my friends, because then we played in the street a lot. There weren't that many cars, so we could play ball in the street without worrying about too many cars. And somehow or other, I can't really figure it out. I've been trying. We did not suffer that much in the Depression. My brother and my sister both worked, bringing money into the house. My
Hmm.
father, unfortunately, had to go out daily looking for work, either as a tailor or a painter, and it
Okay.
was day work. But it didn't affect, nothing affected me. I had what I needed.
Right.
Uh, so you say the Great Depression? I know because I know friends whose parents were very bad off. And of course, reading the newspapers, you see what the unemployment situation is, the breadlines, and so on. Um, it was bad, but not for some reason, not for me. And I still don't know for sure why.
That is interesting.
It sort of, I was, I think, an accident, actually. and they pampered me a little bit,
Right. Well, yeah, maybe your
which
parents
was
were.
which was a mistake. No, it was because uh, I was very naive as a young boy,
Uh-huh.
very shy, especially when it came to girls.
Uh-huh.
And well, that was cured in the army, I'll tell you that. After that, I had no trouble. So that's what the situation was during the Great Depression. It was bad. And, you know, the bad part about, not the bad part, but an incident that happened in 1933, I think, when veterans of World War One were looking to get their bonus. And this was 15 years after the war, and they never got their bonus. And there was the March on Washington.
Hmm.
And they would put up tents in the parks, and it was called Hooverville because Herbert Hoover was the president at that time.
Right.
And then they got the army to disperse the veterans. And would you know who the generals leading that? They weren't generals then.
No, I do not know.
Arthur, Eisenhower, and Patton.
Really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
would get rid of these veterans, which was a crime, because they served like I served and everybody else that served, and they deserved better. They finally did get their bonus, though. But it
Wow.
took years and years after the war and during the Great Depression when they really needed it.
Right. That is
Okay,
interesting. Thanks for elaborating on that. That's pretty interesting. I Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see if the live stream is still going on. All right, that's it. It's working. I guess people are tuning in. You want to know how many people are watching?
yeah, that'd be interesting.
All right, should I have that on my phone? There's 32 people watching.
Oh my goodness,
So
are
that's
they all involved in newspaper work or
no. They are
reading?
all involved in World War. They all have an interest in World War Two. Um,
Okay,
so yeah, I shared this to other networks groups that I am part of on Facebook. So people are tuning in from everywhere. So to listen to your story.
well, I better be careful.
So how old were you when you got your draft notice?
When I got the draft notice, I was 18.
18. What do you remember something about that, like coming home and then finding the notice, or how did that go?
Well, it came by postcard, but there's an interesting prelude to that, if you're interested.
Let's go for it.
A couple of years before that, when I was 16, this was in 1941,
Right.
I was playing basketball in a schoolyard, and I wasn't wearing my sneakers that day, like an idiot, really. And I slipped and I fell on my hand and dislocated my left elbow and tore all the ligaments in my elbow. And my hand just ballooned up, black and blue, and well, like this, Joey.
Wow.
And I went home and I lay down. And then my mother was in another room doing some sewing for my sister. And I went in and I said, well, I think I have a problem. And she looked at the arm. She said, problem, my God. We went to the hospital nearby, a very good hospital, Columbian Presbyterian, which is a very good hospital, one of the best in the city at the time. And my elbow had been dislocated, but at the time I pushed it back in place.
Wow.
I don't know how or why, but I knew it should have been in, and I pushed it back in place, but it still swelled up very badly.
Can imagine.
I
Yeah.
got to the hospital, and the doctors looked at, and they laid me up in the hospital in traction. And one of the doctors, an intern, I believe, told my mother, well, this is the way his hand is going to be at right angles like this, Joey. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, going to be like that. And no way. But anyway, I had an aunt who happened to be quite wealthy, and she had a doctor on Fifth Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
It's equivalent to Harley Street doctors in London, who are the specialists, very expensive. And he looked at me and looked at my arm. He says, "Let's see what we can do with that." And he put my elbow on his knee and just went like this and straightened it out. And then I did a series of exercises carrying a pail of water, and my arm is as good as new. But not for my mother. She took me to every doctor she could find to get them to say I'm not good for the army, that I can't go. I have a disability. And one said, "Put your hand behind your back." And I put it back of me. And she looked at her and he said, "He's drafted." So I got the notice and I went down for my exam. And I passed, of course.
Uh-huh.
And, I called her up from the place where they did the examinations. And I told her, and she said to me over the phone, "You wanted to go, didn't you?" And I looked at the phone, and Joey, I shook my head like this. Yes,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to go. And the reasons I wanted to go, and I didn't go into this before, my mother was a very, very strong and domineering woman.
Mm-hmm.
Domineering to the point where my brother couldn't take it anymore. He ran off and got married. Married a very lovely woman. She really was nice. Unfortunately, she died in childbirth.
Oh, wow.
And he remarried another nice woman. That one lasted, but he didn't last, unfortunately. And then my sister married 3 times, and my mother interfered so that she divorced 3 times. She just couldn't keep her nose out of everybody's business.
Oh, wow.
When I came home from the army and I started a date, she didn't like any of the girls. I would date one girl, no, I'd date another girl, and then she'd say, "You should have gone with the other one." She just had her fingers in everything. I really couldn't take it, so that's why I was happy to go.
I see. I see what you mean.
All right. Do you want to go?
How did your mother feel like about you going into the service, and how did your
She she wasn't happy about it, but there was obviously nothing she could do.
mm-hmm.
This was a war, and the government said, I want you," and you went, and that was it.
Exactly.
In fact, in my first camp, which was in Virginia, Camp Pickett, Virginia, it was a medic camp,
Mm-hmm.
training battlefield medics. I didn't like that too much. But anyway, that was my basic training camp. One weekend, she and my sister came down to camp. That involved a train trip from New York to Washington, and then hiring a car to drive about 80 miles to the camp. That must have cost them a lot of money to do that trip both ways. She had to come and see how the Army was treating me. Couldn't keep her fingers out. And that was it. That's why I was glad to go, Joey.
I see.
No, and not only glad to go because of her, but all my friends had gone. What was I going to do? I had to go. I had to do my job.
Right. And you're
So,
also 18, I guess, and 18-year-old people who, when I was 18, I wanted to go out of the house too.
yeah, yeah, you do. You've got a life that you have to live, and not have everybody look over your shoulders.
Exactly. And if you don't mind me asking, how did your father say anything about about you
No,
go?
he was sort of overpowered by my mother. That's another unfortunate thing as far as I'm concerned. I treated him very badly.
Okay.
This is the way she treated him. I sort of leaned toward her.
Hmm.
I realized afterwards, too late, that he was the good one.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And I feel very, very bad now that I did not apologize to him for my treatment of him.
Well, I think he was very proud of you, anyways.
Oh, I think he was, yes. Yes, I think he was. And then there were the war years.
Exactly.
Do you want?
let's talk about the war years.
All right, I'll talk about my the service and how I traveled in the service. As I said, the first camp was in Virginia,
Right.
Camp Camp Pickett, Virginia, which was a medic training camp. Then the Army uh, was setting up schools. They wanted to train engineers because, in their thinking, they were going to need engineers after the war to build up the damage that they were doing during the war. So they set up what was called the ASTP, the Army Specialized Training Program. And they look, I'm going to say something, and I don't want you to think I'm arrogant or egotistical or conceited, but
Go ahead.
they did take the smartest ones. Well, I had a high IQ,
Okay.
and
I'm sure you have.
so I had a chance then to either go to OCS or go to school.
Uh-huh.
And I reasoned if I go to OCS and come out as second lieutenant in 90 days, I'm going to be in the front line with the troops, leading them. Here I am, I'm still 18, and I'm going to lead troops into combat. Somehow it didn't sit right, Joey, so I said I'll go to school.
I see.
So I went to this school in Philadelphia, Drexel Institute of Technology, which was one of the best engineering schools in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Me and a lot of others. And we studied our engineering. 9 months later, they closed the program down, and everybody was shipped off either to the infantry or combat engineers. You had no choice. You went. The
Interesting.
reason for that was they were doing the invasion in Africa and Sicily, and they needed soldiers.
Right.
So that's when I went to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, to the rail splitters.
They were already there, or?
They were already there. They had originally started in Texas, in Camp House, Texas, crossed over a river
Mm-hmm.
to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, and that's where I joined them.
What year was this?
This was 1944.
1944. All right. And so you continued training there?
Yeah, early in 1944, and that's where I had my basic infantry training.
All right. And what did the training consist of?
Well, marches, physical training, maneuvers, digging foxholes, uh, simulated battles, all sorts of things like that.
All right. Now, were you a rifleman? I don't think you were a rifleman, were you?
No, no. I was put into a heavy weapons platoon, Company M. In each battalion, or each regiment, has 3 battalions, and each battalion has a heavy weapons. The 3rd Battalion, M Company, was the heavy weapons. 2
Mm-hmm.
machine gun platoons and 1 mortar platoon. Fortunately, I lucked out again, and I became a mortarman and not a machine gunner.
All right. And so, did you get special training for that? I assume you got special training for that.
Oh yeah, all of my training then was on the mortar, operating the mortar, breaking it down, setting it up, and firing.
And firing.
And learning how to fire and how to, and then be a forward observer to judge distance and direct fire.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to all the other maneuvers.
So how does I did not do any military training myself. So how does that look like? How does the training look like? Do you eventually train so much that you can that you can measure the distance like 200 yards? You kind of get a sense of what is
Yeah,
100 yards, what is a 200 yards, what is a 300 yards.
well, some people better than others. I had, fortunately, very good depth perception,
Okay.
so I could judge distance very nicely. And there are times I hit a target with 2 shots instead of 3.
Oh,
Oh, that's good.
that's very good.
Standard is 3, 1 over, 1 under, and 1 on the target.
Wow. Wow. And so you were you did you put the mortar in, or were you the person?
Okay, we all in in the mortar. platoon. There are 6 squads. Each one had its own mortar.
Right.
And there are 6 or 7 people in the platoon. First gunner, second gunner, forward observer, and ammunition carriers.
Mm-hmm.
So we did all the positions.
Wow.
We rotated. You had to be, what is the word? You had to be good in all of them.
Right. So that whenever one guy
Was not there,
yes.
you took over,
I
right?
see. Okay. That's interesting. So, and when did the 334th oh, someone has a question in the chat. Before we're going with your story overseas, let's see what the chat is saying. Someone says, "I have a question. Can I ask a question?" Sure, you can, but I didn't say, I don't have a question yet. Let's continue with the 84th Division. When did the when were you sent overseas? Did you? I guess you
We
were
sent overseas October 44.
October 44. Did you go
Yeah.
to England
Yeah, we
first?
took the train. We took the train from Louisiana up to New York, boarded a ship, and landed at Southampton, England.
England, and then by another ship to
Eventually, we stayed in England about a month
uh-huh.
till the whole division was there. We did a little more training, and then we took an English ship across the channel to land on Omaha Beach.
Wow. Unfortunately, I do not have the records of the 334th for that month, or your company for that month. Um, I have the record starting in November 44. What did you think? What did you think of France when you got there?
Oh, France. This is how much I had of France. We landed on Omaha Beach. We loaded up on trucks and drove to Holland, to the Netherlands. We, the outskirts of Paris,
Mm-hmm.
never got in, and we never stayed, and we went right through France. So at that time, I had no knowledge. I always wanted to go. From what I heard, the veterans of World War One, I had talked to them. So it wasn't until after the war that I appreciated France.
I see.
But we went to the Netherlands. We stayed there for just a few days till the whole division was accumulated in the area,
Mm-hmm.
and then we head off into Germany to go on to the attack.
Interesting. How? What do you recall of your first combat experience? The first time you said you got into the tech. What do you remember of that?
In the first attack,
Uh-huh.
well, that's very memorable, and I think you know why. I'll go back 2 days to Netherlands,
Mm-hmm.
and Smitty and I went out for a walk. You know,
Could you elaborate more on who Smitty was to the people watching?
Smitty, Smitty was a member of the 84th Mortar Platoon and a very, very good friend.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, here I go again, but please excuse this.
That's right.
Our company, third Company M,
Mm-hmm.
okay, was made up originally of Midwesterners, hillbillies, mountain men, countrymen. They were not city boys. And when we came down from school, we had a rough time with them because they thought we would be taking over their non-com positions and so on. Didn't go that way, so they finally became very friendly. But because of, and Smitty was smarter than me. We were the two smartest ones in the outfit, really.
Hmm.
As a result, we gravitated toward each other because we could at least have a conversation, which didn't involve girls or what you do with girls or anything like that. This was an intelligent conversation. Anyway, we were very good friends. In the Netherlands, when we got there, Smitty and I went out for a walk one night because we knew the next day we were going into Geilenkirchen. No, not Geilen. Yeah, Geilenkirchen,
Yeah.
just over the border. And we were talking, and all of a sudden he says to me, if anything happens to me, you got to go visit my parents and tell them what happened. And I looked at him and I says, there's no way, Smitty. I can't do this. I'm still a kid. You expect me to go and give your mother news about something that happened to you? I said, no. But he eventually convinced me to, not convinced me, I just gave in. Okay, then we went into Geilenkirchen, and then went into the attack the next day. And that's when he was killed, almost immediately going into the attack. His squad was the squad before mine. They went out ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
I came in afterwards, and I walked over the body. And that's my first thing, and that was memorable.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans were still shelling us with 88s artillery, and I couldn't stay there. He was dead. There was nothing I could do. So I went on further and ran into my sergeant, platoon sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
He had been hit in both legs. The medic was working on one leg, so I stopped to work on the other leg. Since I'd had medic training, figured I'd work on the other leg. We'd get him out of there a lot sooner.
Right.
Especially with the shells still falling. And then I went on to come up to my squad where we had dug a hole for the mortar and dug foxholes for protection.
Wow. Wow.
I said to them when I went into the hole, I mean, that was a rough day.
Mm-hmm.
Joey, that was a very rough day, believe me. I said, look, I'm going into the hole. When the war is over, come back and get me.
Right. I understand, yeah.
Well, I got out the next morning,
You had to, yeah.
Yeah, I had no choice. But that's what I said. When the war's over, come back, I'll be here.
Wow. For the people watching, I have I have put up the report where you see Schmidt's name, Benedict Schmidt. Because back 2 summers ago already, I showed you all the reports that I had.
Yeah.
With Smitty's name on it, so I put it up on the screen for the people to see. It is. I hope you're doing okay there.
Yeah, fine. My nose leaks a little bit.
So what the people don't know is that Smitty is. Where is he? Where is he now? Sort of say.
Oh, Smitty is buried in Margraten Cemetery in the Netherlands.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, for the people watching, Smitty.
Pardon?
Sorry.
You said what?
No, I said for the people watching, he is. He is buried at the Margraten Cemetery, and I do not know the exact location, the row, and the plot, but he is over there.
Actually, they moved him because the first time I went to visit, he was in another location up in the front row.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's back a little further. But I visited his grave 3 times.
Wow. Was that the first time you really got to say goodbye to your friend? The first time you went over?
Yeah.
Were you there with your wife at
The first time, yes. My wife was with me the first time. The second time was with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And the third time you know about.
Exactly. Wow. That's an incredible, sad story, but thank you for telling that. You eventually took the division eventually took Geilenkirchen. Did they?
No. The division did.
Right.
Not M Company. The infantry went in the day before us and took Geilenkirchen, and then we went in a day later. Because we don't, as a heavy weapons, we don't do the initial frontline fighting. We support.
Right. So you guys are all, yes, especially as a mortar platoon, I suppose.
Yeah. And the machine gunners, they're up a little further. They support them even closer. That's why I was glad not to be a machine gunner.
Right. And with that's another fun, what I think is a fun fact is that with the heavy weapons company, you have the big mortars. People, there's I think it's the 81 millimeter mortar.
That's the one we had, yes.
Yes, yes. There's the
And
big
the
boys.
and the infantry carry 60 millimeter.
I see. So what happened after Germany, after Geilenkirchen?
Well, we continued the war, of course. After Geilenkirchen, well, we moved up further toward the Siegfried Line. And then one day or one afternoon, okay, let's load up the trucks. Where are we going? We don't know. But we loaded up on 2.5 ton trucks late one afternoon and drove most of the night and got to Marsh in Belgium about 2 o'clock in the morning. We didn't know where we were. We didn't know where we finally knew what happened, but up until that point, nobody knew anything. Or if they did, they never said anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they told us the Germans have broken through and we're at a point where we have to stop them. And they were closer than they thought because when we got there, the intelligence officers, we shake our heads when we say intelligence officers, but what the hell? That's their job. They said we have to know where they are. So they formed a combat patrol. Combat patrol had 12 men, and their job is to go out and capture a prisoner or two, bring them back for interrogation. The regular patrollers are 2 men, and they don't do any fighting. They just go to observe who's where and what, and that's just get information. So we set off at night, going down a road, 6 men on each side of the road, spaced 5 yards apart, according to regulations, and we started. I don't think we got 50 yards down the road when a machine gun opened up on us. He didn't know where we were. He just heard noises and started firing. So we fell to the ground, rolled in a ditch, lay there till it stopped, and went back to our lines and told the intelligence people, well, there they are, right out there. Now go do something about it. So at that point, we did holding positions to keep them from advancing further. Years later, I found out when we went to visit with the grandson at a hotel, the hotel owner, who was very, very sympathetic to the 84th Division because he said the Germans had half the town and the 84th had the other half.
Mm-hmm.
And we drove them out, and they were very happy. In fact, one homeowner printed a logo of the 84th Division patch on the side of his building, about 10, 12 feet in diameter. I have pictures of it. You might have seen it.
Yes, I definitely have seen it. I think
Yeah, so,
there must be people watching who have probably seen it too.
yeah.
It's
And and I went back to that hotel a couple of times, and he treated us royally whenever we went.
yes, you were his liberator.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, the people in Holland, when I was there with you and so on, they treated me like a king.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept saying, I didn't do it. I wasn't here. I was somewhere else. He said, doesn't matter. You're an American soldier. You treat us, period. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. Joey, I keep telling my friends, you want to meet some nice people, you go to Netherlands.
Some people say we are too direct. We are at rem. I think if I don't know if that's an English word as well.
You're what?
We are very direct.
Oh yeah, that's the word. And look, you're direct, you're honest, and you're very sympathetic. And you don't forget. You haven't forgotten in 76 years.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a bit weird now that we don't have all the commemorations going on. You were supposed to be here with us.
Yes, I know.
for the
I've
in the
been getting
next
ready.
2 weeks.
And I'm so sorry about that. Hopefully, maybe
That's
later in the
that,
year it could be.
that's not your fault, of course, but yeah.
Yeah.
So people are one person is asking. He said, "I always wanted to know if mortars could be directed almost horizontally for certain situations. Is that
Horizontally?
did you ever fire the mortar horizontally?
No, can't be done because there has to be an angle because you load the shell in from the top, it drops down by gravity
There you go. Yeah,
where it explodes and comes out. Horizontally, it wouldn't work. No.
exactly. That's interesting.
I don't know. I don't remember what the minimum angle is, but there has to be an angle.
I see. Yeah, otherwise gravity won't work.
Right.
You know, some another guy that a friend that I know, he says, did David see any British troops in Geilenkirchen? Do you recall seeing any of the British?
Outside of Geilenkirchen, yes. We had an English tank division seconded to our fort with us.
Really?
They were called the Sherwood Rangers.
Wow.
So they were with us.
What do you recall any events with them? Any
What?
do you recall any special events that you
Yeah. One tank came up, and all of a sudden he starts firing his machine gun. He puts a hole through the jacket of a machine gun, which is water cooled, so the machine gun is worthless. We say, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm just sighting in." Go sight somewhere else, will you please? Well, I have another story with the English soldiers in
go
Belgium.
go ahead.
We were on a little bit of a hill, and this English group came to relieve us off the hill late one afternoon, roughly about 4 o'clock, 4:30. And in December in Belgium at 4 o'clock, it's getting dark,
Mm-hmm.
especially with all the woods. And they started to light fires. And I don't know who said it, but they said, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "Well, it's tea time, you know." And then the Germans started shelling.
Oh no.
To them, as far as I'm concerned, war is a game.
Uh-huh.
I've always knew that the English soldier was a good soldier. It's the officer corps that stinks.
I see.
Tea
I see.
time in the middle of a war. My God, that's crazy. Anyway, that's all I have with the English.
I see. I see. That's all right. Hold on. There's people coming into my house. Um, let's continue. If there's too much noise, you gotta tell me. But we'll go ahead. It's the Belle of the Bulge. What a When you arrived, did you what do you recall seeing? Was it snowing? Was it cold? Was there no snow? Was it raining?
When we got there, there was no snow. It was cold,
Mm-hmm. What,
but there was no,
do you recall the date in which you arrived?
November 20th.
Around the 20th? All
No,
right.
I'm sorry, December 20th.
December the 20th, yes.
December 20th. Yeah, that's the day we arrived. There was no snow, but it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we were tired. So I just laid down on the ground. I was going to go to sleep.
Right.
And my lieutenant says, "You better get up or you're going to freeze to death." So I got up. A couple of days later, it started to snow.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting because a lot of people who are studying the Battle of the Bulge have no idea um, that it wasn't snowing until like a couple of days after the battle started. So I'm always interested in that question. Uh, and you
Well,
just
that's right. It didn't start until a few days after the battle started because it started on the 16th of December,
right,
and it didn't start to snow until later.
exactly.
But when
Someone,
it started to snow, it snowed.
oh, we have seen it on the pictures. Yes.
Hmm?
How did you stay warm? I mean, I guess
Have
there's
you?
people walking around patrolling, digging foxholes, digging them deeper to stay warm. How did you do that?
I honestly don't know. I've been thinking because I did not have too much in the way of good clothing because we came down from Germany where it wasn't that cold.
Hmm.
I had a woolen shirt, a sweater, and a field jacket, which is very thin, and that's what I had. Sometimes, if we were lucky, uh, the supply sergeant would send up overcoats that we could use at night, but we had to give them back in the morning because it was difficult for us to fight, especially carrying mortars and ammunition with those heavy overcoats. I don't know how the Germans did it. They had big overcoats that they were wearing all the time, and they were fighting in it, but I don't know how. I guess they were better soldiers than we were,
Hmm.
but we won anyway.
Now, what I think is interesting is or a question that I would like to ask is because you are an M company, you are manning the mortars. What was the closest that you ever see the German soldiers? Because I imagine the infantry is always is fighting the Germans, but you are more to the back.
Well, yeah, when I was a up front uh, directing fire,
Hmm.
I was actually in front of the infantry. I had to be in front in order to see. So the closest I've seen Germans about 50 yards
50
in
yards?
in combat conditions.
Right. Yes, I see. Okay. And did you ever see tanks up close or other vehicles up close in combat?
Uh, no, I was close, but I didn't see it. I heard it.
You heard it.
Yeah,
Could you tell us about it?
yeah. Uh, we were in the position around Marsh for several days,
Hmm.
and my captain. Oh, I don't even want to go into my captain. Told another fellow and myself, take the bazooka and go up to this crossroad because there's German tanks on that road and take them out.
Right.
It was not a job for us, but he gave the order to obey orders. So he and I went up. He's carrying the bazooka, and I have a 35-pound radio on my back. It's called a 300 radio. We get up there into position at the crossroad, hide ourselves behind some bushes, and you hear the tanks coming. Because you can hear tanks a mile away with the way they creak, especially at night. Someone just travels.
Hmm.
And he says to me, load me up. I said, with what? I'm carrying a radio. He said, you don't have any rockets? I said, no, I don't have any rockets. He says, let's get the hell out of here. And we walked through the woods, and fortunately we got back. And we were very lucky, because if we did have rockets, we would not have been able to take out the tank, because an American bazooka rocket would only bounce off the front of a German tank.
Right.
At that point, the troops following along with the tank would know where we are, and that would have been it for us.
Exactly. Wow.
We were lucky we didn't have it, and we got out of there. Went back, told the captain, and he looks at us, and you know what he has to say? You're a coward. I looked at him and I said, oh God. And you know, that was the last time I saw him all through combat until later on when we crossed the Roar River some months later, because we went back from Belgium up to Germany again. I heard he had been killed.
Oh wow.
I never saw him again. He was not. He never came around to see the troops, see how they were doing, their well-being. You got enough clothes, you got food, you got ammo, you know, something.
You never
Like
you never saw him.
never saw him. That's what an officer's supposed to do.
Right.
Lieutenants were much better.
He, I believe. What would you? What is his name? What was his name?
What was his name?
Oh, you don't want to say his
Yeah,
name?
I'll give you his real name. Edward T. Latta, Latta.
Okay.
In fact, the time I went with my daughter to Margaret, and we saw Smitty's grave. And I said to the people, or the fellow who runs the cemetery, like this fellow Frank that we saw who ran Margaret when we were there. I said, "Where's Captain Ladder's grave?" He told me, and I went over there and I stood there and I looked at him and I looked at him. My daughter saw a look on my face and she said, "Don't you dare! Don't you dare! I know what you're gonna do. Don't you dare!" So we left.
Wow. Well, thank you. There's another. Let's see. I think there was another question here. Larry Murley is Murley. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. He says, "Did David know any of the men from the 333rd, the 333rd Third Regiment?"
No, no. The 333rd was in a different area than the 334th. Never crossed.
Never crossed paths.
No.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I suppose guys from other regiments never see each other, even though fighting.
Only if they were friends before.
Right.
You make an effort to go see them. But as far as in combat, the paths never crossed. They had their area to cover and conquer and fight on, and we did, and the 335th the same.
Right. I see. That's interesting. Or unless you're relieving each other from a position, then
right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Relieving you might cross with them, but no, I don't recall knowing anybody from the 330th. The only one from the 334th, the 335th that I knew, not personally, I just knew of him. This fellow named, he owned a magazine, Barron's Magazine. Oh, what's his name? He owned the magazine, and he was a mortar gunner in the 335th.
Oh,
and he get out.
I know who you're talking about. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up for you because I know I actually he has a he has a huge building in France with his family that he owns.
Yeah, and he had
Forbes.
Right, Forbes, yes. He could have gotten out, but he says, "I'm staying in the mortar platoon."
Huh. But you didn't know him, right? You heard of him.
Yeah.
Interesting. I believe the governor of one of the governors of West Virginia served in the 334th G Company, I believe. But
That's the second battalion.
Yes, but I do not recall his name anymore. I think there was another question over here. Christopher Doyle says David must have encountered many Hitler Youth, and many Volkssturm, the older people. I'm not sure if you did, but what was David's and his buddy's reaction to see such young and old people fighting you?
Well, we didn't see the younger people right initially. We saw some of the older ones.
Mm-hmm.
This was later on in the war, when we had crossed the border into Germany.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we ran into. I don't recall seeing any of the kids. I saw some of the kids after the war. Some of the boys and some of the girls. They were still Hitler Youth. They still believed in it. But with the older ones we saw, they gave up very quickly, which was the smartest thing that they could do.
Yeah.
The war was lost at that point. Why fight and die?
Yeah, I have no answer to that.
Oh, I do. Having been in that position, I had no choice. But if I had a chance to give up and not die and live, yes.
I see.
Going back to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, for a moment. That was a prisoner of war camp. Africa Corps soldiers that were captured in Africa fighting with Rommel.
Mm-hmm.
And they were prisoners of war in Camp Claiborne. These were the cream of the crop. Blonde, blue-eyed, tall. And when we would go out on a hot day to they would laugh at us because they were out of the war, they were alive, and
Yeah,
they had some of them actually were able to leave camp, work on farms, and some married American girls.
interesting. Did you saw those guys when
Yes,
you were in Camp Claiborne? Wow,
yeah,
wow.
I can still picture them. Blonde, blue-eyed, tall,
Did you
good.
ever did you ever try to talk to them?
No, no.
Hmm. They also didn't talk to you.
They yelled at us or laughed, but we didn't talk.
Interesting. Now that you're talking about Camp Claiborne, did you recall seeing any of the African American soldiers over there? Because I know they were there.
No, they were in a separate area.
You
Never,
never.
never crossed paths with them at Camp Claiborne.
Okay, interesting. Interesting.
At that point, the army was segregated.
Right. Yeah, I know, but there was a. I know that there are a couple of there was one tank battalion that I know of. Well, I think the others were there as well. But the 758 Tank Battalion was a African American tank battalion that served in Italy, and I read their book, and they were in Camp Claiborne uh, around the same. Well, not around the same time as you. I think they were there in November. But I was just wondering if you might have crossed paths with them.
No, no, never did.
Some guy, I believe, I'm not sure, or a woman, I'm not sure. I don't recall. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing
Hmm.
this.
All right.
Anyway, someone is asking what was the morale of the soldiers during the Battle of the Bulge? I don't know what.
Uh, the morale of soldiers generally they bitch, they complain, but they do their duty. They really do. I don't want to sound like a overly patriotic. Well, I don't know what the word is, but nobody defected. Nobody deserted.
Right.
None of our guys ever deserted.
Most of you just did what you just did what had to be done.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, it was very difficult in Belgium. We had three things we had to fight: the Germans,
Hmm.
the weather, and of the weather, it was the wind and the snow. The Germans were no problem in comparison, but fighting that snow was difficult. To slog through the snow and then have to try to dig a foxhole for protection was not easy.
Yeah, and I bet you're not prepared for that as well. You don't get training in digging foxholes in snow.
Oh, not in snow, no. In in, in mud, yes. Soft dirt, yes, but not in snow.
I see. Carl McDermott is asking any recollections of serving alongside the Sherwood Rangers.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think he missed that part of the live stream. I think he can just go back to that.
When we first went into Germany, in outside of Geilenkirchen near Prumern, and we were there at that time last year or 2 years ago.
Yes.
We There was a division of Sherwood Rangers with Sherman tanks, American tanks, that supported us. So we were connected with them, and actually we were part of Montgomery's 21st Army,
Hmm.
and we were very happy to get out of it. Go back to the American Army, the American Ninth Army later on.
Who did you serve under after that? I should know. Let me see where transferred to. Do you know? Do you recall that?
In the American Army,
Yes.
well, our general was, oh, God, I should get my book. I can't, it's my memory sometimes, Joey,
Is it
there was
Stevens? Oh no, that's
no,
Stephen Ainsworth. No, I'm not sure.
no. The overall general was Omar Bradley.
Okay. It won't. Corpse. Oh, you were. I see. You were transferred all the time. On November 4th to the 19th Corps. After that, to the 8th Corps. You were transferred all back and forth. So yeah. All right.
Well,
So
I didn't know about the courts, but I only knew that in Belgium we were with the First Army. That
okay.
was it.
Now, yeah, I see right here. So after March, do you recall anything else of the Battle of the Bulge?
A few things, yeah. Most of it, no, but a few things. After after the Battle of the Bulge, we went back up to Germany and continued our fight toward the Siegfried Line. Uh, then, the day we got back from Belgium, uh, we were in the Netherlands again.
Mm-hmm.
I think the town was Eygelshoven.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
Is that a coal mining town?
Probably because that's most of that region around
Okay.
during that time was a mining town. Yeah.
All right. There was a mining town, and they had hot showers. And we had for our first shower in God knows how long, clean clothes. It felt like we struck it rich. Didn't want to get out of the shower.
How long did you sit under it?
Nice, huh?
How long did you stand under it?
As long as possible. I don't know, but there's somebody behind you. I want to get in there. When I came out, clean clothes, and I'm walking up the street, and I look up and I see this fellow coming down the street. My best friend in the world, one I grew up with back home. It's from when we were about 13.
Who is it?
And he was in the 102nd Infantry, which was a division that fought side by side with the 84th.
Mm-hmm.
And he was wearing glasses. He didn't see me until he came up on me and stunned. We hugged and talked for a few minutes. And I said, "Look, I have to go. I've got to go reconnoiter positions up on the river because we're crossing the river
Mm-hmm.
on the second." So, and he had just come back from the hospital. So that was a nice meeting.
Wow. How what was his name?
Marvin Burnback.
Marlon Burnback.
Marvin.
Marvin.
Marvin. Marvin Burnback.
Wow.
He was in the 102nd Division,
Ozarks.
the Ozark Division, right?
Wow. And he
And then,
did you say he came back from the hospital?
yes,
Was he wounded or did he have was he a
he, he,
non-veteran?
had, he had been wounded in the leg.
Okay. Wow. Did you ever see him after the war?
Oh, of course. After the war, I can't tell you. First of all, he was best man at my wedding.
Okay. I did
Uh,
not know that. Oh, we're losing connection with David here. I'm not sure if it's me or if it's David. Hold on. But as soon as we get access to it, let me see what's going on here. All right, we lost contact with David. But my thing is working. I can see that. Thank you, Bob. David lost connection. I'm gonna try and give him another call. David is now online. Hope you guys are enjoying so far. I'm appreciating all the input and all the questions that people have been asking. Let me just try and connect again. David is awesome, says Edward Foley. Thank you, Edward. We lost connection with David. I don't know what's been going on here. For the people who've been watching, David is a veteran of the 84th Infantry Division and Company 334th. Was in the Mortar Platoon, firing the 81mm mortars. He is calling me now on my phone. Hold on. I'm gonna try and give him. He's calling me on my phone, but I'm not gonna pick that up because we're gonna give that a try. That's not working. We're gonna continue talking to him. I'm gonna try and give him a call. Hold on a minute. There we go. David, is that you? I do not hear anything at the moment.
Hello.
Hello, David.
I don't know what happened, Joey. It just cut off.
I know. Your internet connection somehow got the best of it. I don't know what happened, but I will try and see. Are you near your computer right now?
Yeah, I'm sitting in front of it. It says restarting.
It says restarting. What do you mean, the computer or your?
The computer.
Okay. Well, let's try and talk through the telephone to the phone until your computer is back up.
It's coming back up. Okay, let's go.
You were talking about Marvin Burnback, your friend. That he said you said he was your best man at your wedding. You saw him in Eigelshoven in after you had your shower.
Right. And we met one more time after we crossed the Raw River, going toward the Rhine.
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish holiday of Passover came up, and they had services on the Rhine River for the Jewish soldiers, and I met him there too. And we sat and talked and had a great time.
Wow.
I didn't see him again until after the war.
What did you guys talk about? Do you remember any of the conversations you had with him during that time during the war?
Not really. Since we were old friends, we had other things to talk about. But we obviously we did. I told him about Belgium because he took the 102nd took over the 84th Division positions when we left.
Right.
So he was telling me about how thin their lines were, stretched out, that they had to cover. And I told him about Belgium, and the conversation went along that way.
Wow. That's pretty interesting, I suppose.
We had war stories to tell each other. Actually, after the war, we were still good friends. I stood up at his wedding, and we played golf a lot together. We used to go away for a week to play golf.
Wow. Did you go on like holidays with your wife, you and your wife, and him and his wife?
A couple of times, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we went to Bermuda. Somewhere else. But then the other times, it was just Marvin and me who went.
I see.
Without women.
Without women, yeah, you need that too.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, what was the end of the war feel like? Do you recall any? Do you have any stories, any anecdotes, or things that you remember about the end of the war?
Well, yeah, there is one. This involved my mother. I was in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Reims, but I would go to Paris every weekend. But anyway, I was in France. And by the way, at this time, I loved France. Believe me, I still, I still do. Um, having a good time, of course. And then all of a sudden, I get a notice from the Red Cross that my mother got me an emergency furlough to go home.
Okay.
I didn't want to leave. I had
Hi.
no choice.
Right.
But so I flew home from Paris in a C-54, which was a paratrooper plane
Mm-hmm.
with bucket seats on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
And we flew across the Atlantic in December when it was pretty rough.
Oh yeah.
We got to Newfoundland and we snowed in. There was this other fellow, paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne, and we became friendly, talked because he was a fighting soldier and I considered myself a fighting soldier. So we went to the non-coms club and we drank. And then they said they were going to close. So we went up and we each took a handful of drinks, went back to the table, sat and drank. And they poured us on the plane the next morning to get home. It turned out the reason for the emergency furlough, my mother had to go to Arizona for her health. She
Oh.
had lung problems.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister was working, my brother was working. They couldn't take her. I was the only one available.
Oh.
So I trained to Arizona, to Tucson, Arizona, a 3-day trip. And there was a guy on the train who was trying to hustle me into a card game. I said, "Go find somebody else. You don't want me." Because I knew about card sharks. I learned about them in the Army. I stayed in Tucson for about 2 weeks and then came home and stayed with my father and went back to school.
Oh, that was like that. So that was immediately the end of the war for you.
Yeah,
What time was this? What date? What month?
this was January, February 1946.
Okay. Did the 84th Division have any occupation duty after the war was over?
Yeah, that's what I was doing there at the time.
Okay. Okay. How do you recall VE Day then? Wait,
Very
before we continue with that, is your
back back on I'm back on Skype now.
okay, let's try and do that. Let's try and
All right. What should I hit? Hit your email?
no, hold on. There we go. Now David should pick up. There you go. I'm sorry, the connection lost on the phone, but we are
Yeah,
back here, David.
yeah. When I'm clicking, okay, I see you. You see
Okay.
me?
No, not yet. You gotta click on that video camera button
I
on.
just did. Okay.
There you
I,
go.
okay, great.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that, Joey.
No, that's all right. Hold on. You should be back with us now, so that's great. At least the people can see you again on the stream.
Good.
There you go. We're back.
Great.
So we were talking about VE Day.
Yeah, VE Day. You're not talking about. Oh, VE Day. You're right. Good story. I'm full of stories, Joey.
Ah,
Believe me.
I'm waiting to hear them.
All right. At that point, I had been taken out of my outfit and put into a small unit of 3 officers and 6 enlisted men, uh, almost like a civilian unit. And our job was to take prisoners of war, displaced persons, uh, delouse them. If we could get clothes for them, okay, and then send them on their way back to their homes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in this big room. Now I'll tell you about. All right, with another of my comrades. The door opens and this man walks in. He's carrying a pistol.
Mm-hmm.
He's holding the pistol in his hand as if he was going to fire it.
Right.
I looked at my friend. He looks at me. Our rifles are in the corner of the room. There's no way that we could get to the rifles. And he walks up, flips the gun around, and hands it to me butt first. It turned out to be a Russian copy of an American 45. A
Wow.
very, very nice pistol. I took that home.
Wow.
Anyway, during that time, I had appropriated a German Volkswagen, one of the first Volkswagens that Hitler built for the people, which they never got. So I got this Volkswagen and I drove it around. And I met this family, farmyard, 2 daughters, and I was visiting them one night.
Coffee. Mama?
And this
Coffee?
was
Yes.
day after VE Day, I think. And they brought out a bottle of whiskey, American whiskey, and we drank. And I finally left and I got into the car and I backed up to turn around and I backed into the manure pile and I couldn't get out.
Oh no.
My back wheels are spinning and there's no movement. As I'm sitting there, this staff car pulls up with a couple of officers and they go in to the house. You were not supposed to fraternize with the Germans. It cost you $65. That was a month's pay for me.
Oh wow.
I'm sitting there shivering in my pants. They finally came out and drove away. I can't move. I had to wait till the farmer got up the next day. He got a team of horses and pulled me out. And then I went on my way. That was an experience. I laugh at it now, but I was scared that night.
I can imagine, yes. That's funny.
So that unit was interesting, and this guy giving me the gun. What happened that night? And then we drove up. We left there. We drove on convoy away from there, back in the 84th.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you went back to the 84th?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
What kind of
And we
unit?
drove.
What kind of unit was it then that you were in? That's in between.
I forgot what they called it. It was almost like a civilian authority.
Okay.
You've heard of this fellow? God, here goes the name again. American. He was German. He was part of the. He was in the 84th. He was a friend of President Nixon, also Secretary of State. Oh God, coming to me. Come on. Anyway, he was put in charge of this town in Crefeld on the Roar River when we captured it.
Henry Kissinger.
Henry Kissinger, that's the one. Thank you very much. He was in the 84th Division.
Huh. Wow. So, but you were not, were you with him in that small little unit?
No. I don't know where he was after we left Crefeld, because we crossed the Rhine River and continued our attack, driving the Germans back to the Elbe River, where
Mm-hmm.
we met the Russian soldiers. We met the Siberian Division on the Elbe River.
Wow.
I wouldn't want to meet them in combat.
No, but
Mean, nasty sons of bitches. I'm telling you, they were terrible.
the Russians. Did you ever talk to the Russians then?
As little as possible. We were told not to talk to anybody because you don't know whether they were SS in other uniforms. One day we're driving along in the Jeeps. And this Russian soldier comes up and says to me, Padnyamaya, which does mean, do you speak Russian? And like an idiot, I said, Yet, which is no Russian.
Right.
My parents came from Russia.
Ah.
And they used to speak Russian in the house when they didn't want me to understand. But that I knew. I said, Yet. Well, I didn't lose him for the whole day. He followed us because he thought I spoke Russian. And he
Did you ever said another Russian word to him?
Not that was the last word I said to him.
Uh,
I'd have had a friend for life if I said anything more.
I bet. I bet. I'm sure you did. We would. Do you still speak Russian?
Yet. No, I never spoke Russian.
Sorry?
I never spoke Russian except for a couple of words.
I see. I see. That's funny. So that was that. Did you ever like? I should have been more knowledgeable about the 84th Division. But did you ever come across a concentration camp?
Yes, we liberated one.
What was its name?
Alem, Ahlem. You can look that up. Near Hanover,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a sub camp for Belsen, I think, one of the bigger camps.
Right.
We came up on it one day and freed the prisoners. The Germans had already left.
The guards had already left.
Yeah, because
Okay.
they'd have been shot if they were there. I'm telling you, we were ready to shoot them.
Wow.
We shouldn't do it, but we would have.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when you saw the condition of the prisoners, we'd have done it.
Did you see them yourself?
Who? The prisoners?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. In my division history book, we have some pictures of it.
Wow. What what kind of prisoners were there? Were there Jewish prisoners? Were there
All
military
kinds. All,
PWs?
mostly Jewish, but there were all kinds.
Okay.
And there were some that were dead already, lying on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Others were walking. They were hungry, but we couldn't feed them because our food would kill them. They couldn't digest our food. They'd have to wait for the medics to come up and give them warm soup or milk or something like that.
Right.
And some of them, even though they were free and they could walk out, they died shortly afterwards anyway. It was a shame. Here they are free and then they died.
Wow.
That crime.
Wow. That's
If you
sad.
look up all of them, you'll see it.
Yeah, I saw it.
Ahlem.
Ahlem. Noted. So the end of the war. How you went back to normal life? You went back to school. What did you do?
Yes.
What did you do after the war?
Well, I went back to school to get my degree in chemistry.
Okay.
I dated.
You did
Oh, hell yeah.
it.
But American girls are not like the Europeans. I'm sorry, European girl. Well, look, European girls were more grown up. They had gone through a lot being
Mhm.
occupied. You know, you grow up pretty fast. American girls were snotty, obnoxious. I didn't like them at all. You lay your hand on them and terrible. Uh, but anyway, you had no choice. They were there, so you dated them. Uh, then I met my wife at a cousin's wedding.
Wow.
My cousin was getting married. He had been in the 5th Infantry Division under Patton.
Really? The 5th
Yeah,
Infantry Division.
I think you know that division.
Yeah, that is my favorite unit, yes.
Yeah. Well, he was in the 5th.
Wow. Can you, before I forget, what was his name?
Bernie Feinberg.
Bernie Feinberg?
Yeah.
Bernie?
Or Bernard.
Oh,
Bernard. Bernard.
yes. And then Feinberg. Fin.
Fien.
Yes.
F Feinberg.
Huh, Feinberg. I see. Okay, thank you. I will. I
So
hope
that's
that.
where I met my future wife.
Wow. How was she related to the wedding?
She was a neighbor. She
Oh.
lived. They lived upstairs from the neighbor from the
Hmm.
cousins.
Was it? Did you see her and you were like, oh, I gotta talk to her?
Nope. She saw me and came over to me. She asked my cousin, my female cousin, because Bernie had a sister, Phyllis, and she said to Phyllis, "Who's that guy over there?" She said, "That's my cousin." She says, "I gotta meet him." So we came over, introduced themselves, and so on.
And we all know how it ended.
71 years later,
So, how long have you been married?
71 years.
Oh, 71 years? Wow. That's wonderful. That's beautiful. So, did you ever I mean, like life went on. What kind of job did you have after the war?
Well, while I was going to school, I got a job in a lab
Okay.
as a bottle washer. I washed bottles in the lab. Finally, when I graduated, I was able to go into the lab and do analytical work,
Wow.
which after a while, sitting in the lab, the four walls started to close in on me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I can't do this. So I went and I became a salesman for the company selling their products, which were pigments.
Okay.
And that was a lot better. That went along pretty well for a while until the company moved out of the city upstate,
Mm-hmm.
and I could go.
You can go.
So I got other jobs after that. Jobs after that had to do with machinery and equipment.
Okay.
I got a job with a man who was a manufacturer's representative. He represented different companies that made machinery, and we represented them, sold the equipment, and got commissions. Then I decided this is not for me either. I got to have my own business. I can't work for somebody. Any day you could be fired. I got to work for myself. So I started my own company.
Wow. In what kind of company?
Uh, Building machine equipment.
Okay.
In fact, I have a brochure I'm going to hold up to show you.
Sure. Marsh hold on. The Marshall Plan.
Yeah, that went over well because it got people's attention and it really fit. And this is the equipment that I made: molds for lipsticks,
Wow.
kettles
That
for melting the lipstick,
wow. That's pretty interesting.
freezer table. You can see the freezer table?
Oh yeah, I see it.
That's to chill the mold with the lipstick in it so it's hard. And when they take it out of the mold, they don't. mess it up.
Wow.
I made all that equipment.
How is the company is the company still running? This
No, I closed it down some years ago.
okay.
It got to a point where I was spending more on advertising than I was getting in receipts. So I decided it was time to close up shop.
I
And,
see. I see. Pretty interesting.
but it went well. For 31 years, I ran that company.
Well, that's good.
One man operation.
One man up. That sounds wonderful.
It was very nice. And the equipment, I farmed out to shops on Long Island. Each shop did a different thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you have a workplace at your home, or did you have an
I'm
like?
sitting, I'm sitting at the workplace.
Oh, really?
This was my office.
And what is it now? It's still your office?
Yeah, yeah.
Seems pretty interesting. Hold on. Huh? Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I wonder what did during all that time did people ask about your service, or did you ever talk about your service, or wasn't that until like the late 90s 2000s?
You're right. We didn't. Most of us didn't talk about it. Very few men spoke about their service. I think it had to do with what their service was. In my case, I never spoke about it until somewhere in the 80s, I guess, 90s,
Mm-hmm.
when I started to talk. Then I would go to schools and talk to the kids about the Battle of the Bulge.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You
In fact, I
still
was supposed to have a couple of conversations this month, but they canceled.
right? And do you do that every other like every month? Do you do a couple of talks?
No, no, no. About 3, 4 times a year,
Okay.
different schools. I take the computer and I have this flash drive
Right.
with pictures on it,
Wow.
which I show on a screen, and I talk about the pictures. And these are mostly about the Battle of the Bulge.
Wow.
So they can see a picture and not just listen to words.
Exactly. So that they have a kind of an idea.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty interesting. I bet you talk like with Marvin Burnback. I mean, as friends, I guess that's the only person or other veterans that you might have known. That's the only people that you really talked about the war. Like you could actually talk about the war. Or,
I'm talking to someone who knew.
exactly.
When you talk to some people, they want to know, but they don't know because they weren't there. And you have to be there to know.
Right.
With Marvin and me, the conversation just kept going and going and going because we were there.
Exactly. Wow.
What a friend he was.
When did he pass away?
2001.
Okay. Oh, that's a pretty long time ago already.
Yeah, I miss him.
Do you have a picture of him?
Yeah, I have one upstairs. Can you wait till I get it?
Sure. No problem.
Hmm?
No
Yeah.
problem. Yeah. That man is still walking. 75 years. He's 94. 95. 95. I'm sorry. That's beautiful. Yes. Um, Christian Dirks. His friend Benedict Schmidt is buried at Margraten. Um, I believe in Plot D. But if you go to Fields of Honor, the Fields of Honor database, and look for last name Schmidt, Schmidt, Benedict G. Smith. You will be able to find him. M Company 334th, 84th Division, and I believe he was killed on the 19th or the 20th of November. David is getting a picture now of another friend. Marvin Burnback served in the 102nd Infantry Division, and they actually this his best friend. Oh, there he is.
And here are two pictures. This one here was taken at my wedding when he
Wow.
was best man.
Wow.
And this one was taken at his 50th re-wedding when they married again. You see the pose on them?
Yeah, yeah.
They're both the same. Automatically, we went into the same type of position. I didn't realize it until my wife said later, look at the picture. What do you see?
You're almost
I said,
identical.
what? You're in the same position exactly. You fell into the same thing. That's Marvin. What a friend.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for showing that.
Yeah.
Are you still in contact with any veterans today?
Only those with the Jewish war veterans. We used to have a company reunion in the Midwest because most of the people were from the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
All through the 90s, we had company reunions. It was very nice. But then arguments started as to where to have the next reunion. I want it where I am, and I don't want to travel this far and so on. I used to travel to the Midwest all the time.
Right.
I never bitched about it. The best times we had when we went to Branson, Missouri. In Branson, Missouri, they have all the opera stars, country western singers, and so on. They each have their own theaters, and they put on shows that are amazing. So we'd go to Branson, Missouri for the reunion.
Interesting.
And that was nice. You're talking with people who were there,
Yeah.
You remember this, you remember that?
I bet that's good therapy.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think there are no more questions for me. I think we've done all of it. I mean, I could talk on for hours and hours. I think we should call it a day here for the interview for the live stream.
All right.
Did you enjoy the live stream? I mean, did you enjoy the conversation? Did you have a good time?
Of course I did. I was looking forward to it, and I'm very happy.
Great.
Joey, when I talk to you, I'm happy. Okay.
That's
The
great.
interview, they're talking about it. I mean, you're putting up with a bunch of stories that I'm telling you. You may or may not enjoy them, but
I enjoy all of them.
I had a lot of fun.
Great. Okay, maybe you can people show you your uniform, your ribbons. What are you have the three combat service stars?
All right. This blue one up here is the combat infantry badge.
Right.
Right? That's for only frontline soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Under that, the only one there's a Bronze Star medal.
Right. You deserve
Okay?
the Bronze Star.
And the one in the middle down here with the 3 stars on it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see them.
I see them. Yes.
One for each of the battles: the Rhineland, Central Europe, and the Battle of the Bulge.
Right.
This one is the French Legion of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is a presidential unit citation given by President Truman to the 3rd Battalion.
To the 3rd Battalion.
Only the 3rd Battalion.
Wow. Why did they get that?
This was for action between Roar and the Rhine.
Okay. Wow. Must have been some pretty heavy combat.
Yeah, it's not as bad, not so bad when you're there. Right. Right.
That's pretty cool. Thank you for showing that, David.
Okay. Well, you're you're playing to my ego. You know that, don't you?
I know. Well, you had more than 30 people listening to your stories today. What else do you want?
31. All right. Oh, this was fine, Joey. Really,
Yes.
my wife said, "How long do you think this is going to take?" I said, maybe a half hour. We've been here.
Oh,
Oh,
the recording I have is 1 hour and 40 minutes.
yeah.
There you go.
Right.
All right. So we're gonna say goodbye to the stream, but goodbye to the people. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I hope you all had a great time listening to David's stories. You can watch the whole interview back. We will try and put it on YouTube if David is okay with that.
YouTube, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good. Um, and yes, again, David Marshall, M Company 334th Mortar Gunner, the Mortar Platoon, 81mm mortars, and a Belle of the Bulge veteran. Uh, Thank you for your service, David, and
Thank you, Joey.
we will talk again.
Of course.
All right, so I stopped the stream right now, and I stopped